Comes a moment in every life when a man or woman must confront the silent truth that they have not been living at the level they were designed for. Not because the world has been unfair, not because opportunity has passed them by, not because they lack intelligence, but because they have allowed the most precious currency they will ever possess, time, to slip through their fingers without command. The poorest man in the world is not the one without money. It is the one who has surrendered the hours of his life to distraction, to reaction, to drift. And the richest man is not merely the one with gold in his coffers. It is the one who has mastered each moment, bending it to his will, shaping it according to his definite purpose. The difference between the two is not fate. It is not chance. It is the mastery or the loss of time. Time is the great equalizer. Every human being, whether king or laborer, whether the head of an empire or the clerk behind a counter, wakes each morning with the same 24 hours. The 1% are not given more hours, they are given the same, but they think differently about those hours. They guard them as a banker guards gold, invest them as a strategist invests capital, and spend them only in ways that yield power, progress, and peace. To think like the 1% is to understand that time is life itself in motion. To waste it is to diminish life. To master it is to enlarge it. But you cannot master time until you have mastered yourself. The man who cannot govern his emotions will spend his hours in argument, resentment, or the endless pursuit of approval. The man who cannot discipline his thoughts will spend his hours in distraction, procrastination, and the chasing of 100 purposes, achieving none. The man who cannot detach from the noise of the crowd will spend his hours reacting to the urgencies of others, never advancing his own. The first principle, then, is this: if you allow emotions to govern your actions, you forfeit your power. But if you command your thoughts, you command your future. Emotional detachment is not coldness. It is the ability to choose your response rather than be driven by impulse. The moment you react blindly, you have given that moment to something outside your control. The moment you choose deliberately, you have claimed it as your own. To master time, you must live by the law of definiteness of purpose. A man without a definite aim wakes each morning with a pocket full of hours and spends them on whatever catches his eye. By nightfall, they are gone, and he has nothing to show but fatigue. A man with a definite aim wakes knowing exactly where each hour will be directed. If an hour cannot be used to advance his purpose, he closes the gate against it. This is why the 1% seem to move faster, not because they hurry, but because no step is wasted. Definiteness of purpose sharpens the mind like a blade, for it filters every decision through one question: does this move me closer to my objective? If the answer is no, the answer is final. There is no maybe in the mind of mastery, because maybe is the breeding ground of waste. From definiteness of purpose, we move to self-discipline, for a plan without discipline is a blueprint in the hands of a man who will never build. Self-discipline is the art of doing what must be done, whether or not you feel like doing it. Feelings are temporary. Results are permanent. The man who works only when motivated will work less and less as time goes on, for motivation is a guest that visits without warning and leaves without notice. The man who works by discipline works every day, and in time his results summon motivation as a servant, not a master. But discipline is impossible without emotional mastery. Your time will be stolen not only by others, but by yourself, by anger that derails your focus, by fear that delays your action, by pride that keeps you in losing battles, by desire that chases distractions. The hours you spend feeding these emotions are hours stolen from your progress. The man who has trained himself to feel without being ruled by feeling commands not only his time, but the respect of all who deal with him. This is where accurate thinking becomes the safeguard of your schedule. The undisciplined thinker sees every opportunity as worth chasing, every crisis as worth his attention, every opinion as worth defending. The accurate thinker weighs each against his definite purpose. If an opportunity cannot return greater value than the time invested, it is declined. If a crisis is not his to solve, it is left alone. If an opinion cannot change the outcome of his work, it is ignored. The crowd will call this arrogance. It is not. It is clarity. The man who tries to answer every summons will never arrive at his own destination. The man who chooses his battles with precision will arrive not only faster but stronger. The law of mental neutrality must also govern you. The neutral mind is not swayed at once by excitement or despair. It receives each situation without distortion, holds it long enough to examine it, and acts only when reason is spoken. Without this neutrality, you will lose hours reacting to shadows, chasing false hopes, or wrestling with fears that dissolve when daylight comes. And to maintain neutrality, you must cultivate the power of calmness. Calmness is not slowness, it is readiness. The calm man can move faster than the frantic man because his energy is not wasted in confusion. In the storm, people run to the one who is steady, not to the one who panics. If you can remain calm while others are in chaos, you will be the one they follow, the one they trust, the one who decides how the next hour is spent. There is also the principle of thought. First, the refusal to act until thought has led the way. Every minute you spend thinking before acting will save you hours correcting the mistakes of haste. The 1% are not necessarily quicker to start. They are quicker to finish because they begin only when their direction is clear. Once thought has chosen the path, you must move without hesitation. Delay is the silent thief of time. It pretends to be caution, but it is often fear in disguise. The disciplined mind knows the difference. It waits when the facts are insufficient, and it moves when the facts are enough. But even the best plan will falter without autosuggestion, the daily conditioning of your mind with the truths you choose to believe. If you tell yourself you have no time, your subconscious will make it so by filling your day with trifles. If you tell yourself you command your time, your subconscious will begin to seek and create opportunities to prove it. Every thought you plant will grow. Be certain you are planting the seeds you wish to harvest. And finally, there is personal initiative, the habit of doing what must be done without being told. The man who waits for permission wastes more time in waiting than in doing. The man who moves without waiting multiplies his hours, for he begins before others have even decided. When you bring these principles together, definiteness of purpose, self-discipline, emotional mastery, accurate thinking, mental neutrality, calmness, thought first, decisive action, autosuggestion, and personal initiative, you begin to see that mastering time is not about clocks or calendars. It is about mastering the self. You cannot control the passage of hours, but you can control how you fill them. And if you fill them with deliberate thought, disciplined action, and the relentless pursuit of your definite purpose, time will become not your enemy, but your greatest ally. So I tell you now, think like the 1%. Guard your hours as if they are gold, for they are worth more than gold. Direct them toward your aim with the precision of a general commanding troops. Refuse to spend them on the trivial, the reactive, the purposeless. And when each day is done, know that you have spent your time in the service of your own destiny, not in the service of another's drift. Do this without compromise, and you will find that you do not merely live longer in years, you live longer in achievement, in power, in peace. And that, my friend, is the true wealth of the 1%. The first step toward mastering time is not in the arrangement of your schedule, nor in the clever use of tools, but in the conquest of your own mental state. For no man can command the hours if he cannot command himself. Consider a commander on the eve of battle. He holds in his possession the most disciplined army in the world, armed with the finest weapons, supplied with the most detailed maps. Yet if his judgment is clouded, if his emotions run riot, if he reacts to every provocation without thought, he will waste his forces on skirmishes that do not matter, tire them before the decisive strike, and lose the field to a smaller but more deliberate opponent. This is precisely what happens when a man attempts to manage his time without mastering his emotional detachment. His hours are his troops, his projects, his campaigns, his purpose, the victory he seeks. If he allows anger to pull him into petty disputes, if he allows fear to keep him from seizing opportunity, if he allows the desire for approval to lead him into pleasing everyone but himself, he will squander his hours in battles that advance him nowhere. To detach emotionally does not mean to feel nothing. It means to feel without being commanded by feeling. You may feel insult, but you do not leap into argument unless it serves your aim. You may feel fear, but you do not retreat unless the facts warrant it. You may feel desire, but you do not pursue it unless it advances your strategy. In every case, you are the sovereign, and your emotions are your subjects. The 1% understand this in their bones. They know that every moment they spend in ungoverned reaction is a moment surrendered to another's control. That is why they cultivate the calm of a surgeon, the patience of an architect, the precision of a jeweler. They know that the clearer the mind, the better the use of time. From emotional detachment flows the power of definiteness of purpose. Time, like water, will follow any channel it is given. If you do not carve your own channel, it will wander across the plain, soaking into the soil of other people's plans. Purpose is the channel. It directs the flow. It says, this hour is for this work, that hour is for that advancement. Without it, you are like a farmer scattering seed on the wind, hoping it will land where it can grow. With it, you plant deliberately in fertile ground. But a plan, however definite, is worth nothing without self-discipline. This is the capacity to act according to decision rather than mood. The man who works when inspired but rests when uninspired is like a soldier who fights only on sunny days. Discipline fights in all weather. It does not negotiate with feeling. It knows that consistency is the compound interest of achievement, small, repeated actions that build into massive results over time. Here is the law. Each hour you control strengthens your control over the next. Each hour you lose weakens your control over the next. This is why drifting breeds more drifting, and discipline breeds more discipline. Time responds to the one who respects it. Yet discipline is fragile without accurate thinking. Many a man has spent his hours in disciplined labor toward the wrong goal, climbing diligently to the top of a ladder only to find it leaning against the wrong wall. Accurate thinking keeps the ladder where it belongs. It weighs every commitment, every opportunity, every demand on your time against the only standard that matters. Does this serve my definite purpose? If it does not, it is eliminated without guilt. To practice accurate thinking in relation to time, you must classify every demand placed upon you into one of three categories: essential, beneficial, or wasteful. The essential serves your purpose directly. The beneficial supports it indirectly. The wasteful serves neither. You give your prime hours to the essential, your lesser hours to the beneficial, and no hours at all to the wasteful. Even with accurate thinking, there is the danger of being swept away by the tides of excitement or fear. This is why you must cultivate mental neutrality, the ability to hold a matter in the mind without leaping to judgment. The neutral mind does not rush to embrace every opportunity, nor recoil from every challenge. It waits, observes, gathers facts, and decides with calm authority. This waiting is not passivity, it is control. The time spent in measured consideration often saves 10 times as much time in later corrections. And to sustain neutrality, you must practice the power of calmness. Calmness is the governor of your mental engine, preventing it from racing into burnout. It is also the anchor in the storm, keeping you steady while others are tossed about. When you are calm, you think more clearly, listen more accurately, and act more decisively. The frantic man mistakes movement for progress. The calm man knows that only movement in the right direction counts. Calmness also gives birth to thought first, the principle of deciding in the mind before committing an action. The untrained man throws himself into every apparent opportunity and spends his time in retreat from mistakes that could have been avoided with a moment's thought. The trained man invests a fraction of an hour in clear thinking and saves hundreds of hours in wasted effort. Once thought has chosen, action must follow without delay. Here lies the balance. Delay in thinking is wisdom. Delay in acting is decay. When the facts are enough, the way is clear, and the decision is made. To hesitate is to invite doubt, and doubt is the great waster of time. Yet all this will falter unless you master autosuggestion, the daily conditioning of your mind with the truth that you are in command of your time. Every morning you must remind yourself, I am the owner of my hours. I choose where they go. I direct them toward my purpose. Every evening you must review. Did my actions serve my aim? Did I guard my time as I said I would? Without this reinforcement, you will slip back into drift, for the world is relentless in offering distractions. Finally, there is personal initiative, the refusal to wait for someone else to set the pace. The man who waits for perfect instructions loses not only the hour, but the habit of independence. The man who acts, who seeks the next step without being told, compresses his learning into months instead of years. Initiative is time creation for each delay you eliminate. You gain more hours for your own advancement. Personal initiative is the antidote to the most common time disease in the world: waiting. Waiting for inspiration, waiting for approval, waiting for conditions to feel right, waiting until you are ready. The masses have made a religion out of waiting, and time is their god, a god they believe will someday bless them for their patience, when in reality it is slipping away hour by hour, indifferent to their passivity. The 1% understand that time rewards only those who seize it. They know that ready is not a state you wait to feel, but a state you create by stepping forward. The timid mind says, "I will act when I am prepared." The masterful mind says, "I will act, and in acting, I will become prepared." I have seen opportunities die in the hands of men who were almost ready. They thought they were being cautious. They were, in fact, being devoured. The moment had been theirs, but they surrendered it to hesitation, and someone with less talent but more initiative took it. Here is a truth you must write into your mind. A single hour of initiative is worth more than 100 hours of perfection delayed. An imperfect act executed today will outrun a perfect act planned for someday. But initiative without direction is waste. This is why personal initiative must be bound to definiteness of purpose, emotional detachment, and accurate thinking. Initiative gives you speed, purpose gives you aim. Detachment keeps you from being baited into meaningless battles. Accurate thinking ensures that each move is worth the time it costs. This is the secret formula by which the 1% multiply their time. They do not have more hours, they have fewer wasted hours. And when wasted hours are eliminated, the value of every remaining hour rises. I recall a meeting with a financier whose calendar was guarded as if it were a vault of gold. I asked him how he decided what to do each day. He told me, "I protect the first 2 hours of my day like my life depends on it. Those hours are for high-leverage thinking, planning, and decisive action. No calls, no meetings, no interruptions. The rest of the day can be unpredictable, but those 2 hours are mine, and they are where the fortune is made." This is not greed for time, this is respect for it. Respect for the hours that create the most value and the discipline to protect them at all costs. The undisciplined man begins his day by surrendering it. He opens his eyes and immediately gives his mind to the world's noise, messages, news, chatter. By the time he attempts to work, his mind is already scattered, reacting to a dozen small matters. His best hours have been spent in service of other people's purposes, and his own work begins already weakened. If you would master time, you must reverse this. Your highest energy belongs to your highest purpose. The world may have the leftovers, but the prime cuts are yours. This brings us to an overlooked truth. Your schedule is a moral document. It reveals, more honestly than your words, what you truly value. You may say that your goal is to build a business, but if your calendar shows more hours given to idle talk than to strategy, your true priority is not business. You may say that your health matters, but if your calendar shows no time for exercise or proper rest, your true priority is not health. Time does not lie, it testifies. Therefore, if you wish to think like the 1%, you must put your highest priorities into your calendar first, not when you find time, but before anything else is allowed to claim it. Those hours are your non-negotiables. From here, we come to the law of sequence and compounding. The 1% understand that time multiplies when used in the right order. They know that an hour spent on the right task today can save 100 hours of correction tomorrow. They know that skills acquired early create opportunities that compound over decades. They know that habits formed now will save energy every day they are in force. The average man thinks in terms of hours and days. The master thinks in terms of years and decades. The average man asks, "What can I get done today?" The master asks, "What can I set in motion today that will pay me every day for the next 10 years? When you think in decades, you do not waste your mornings on what will be irrelevant tomorrow. You do not squander your afternoons in conversations that will mean nothing next week. You do not fill your evenings with distractions that will be forgotten by morning. You choose the few things that will matter for years, and you build your life around them. But this long-term thinking demands one more skill, the courage to be misunderstood in the short term. You will decline invitations others accept. You will say no to urgent requests that do not serve your purpose. You will be accused of being cold, arrogant, or inflexible. This is the price of mastering time, and the 1% are willing to pay it. They know that the crowd will not understand until the results are visible. And by the time the results are visible, the gap between the master of time and the servant of time is so wide that the two no longer live in the same world. To control your hours, you must first control the forces that would steal them without your consent. These forces do not always come in the form of people or events. More often, they come as your own unguarded reactions. Every interruption begins with an invitation, spoken or unspoken, for you to abandon your present aim in favor of another's urgency. If your emotions command you, you will accept these invitations without question. An appeal to your pride will lure you into proving yourself in arguments that lead nowhere. An appeal to your fear will trap you in over-preparing for threats that never come. An appeal to your vanity will cause you to chase approval instead of achievement. Emotional detachment is the art of refusing these invitations unless they serve your definite purpose. It is the ability to pause between stimulus and response, to weigh the cost of time before you pay it. It is saying to yourself, "This is not worth my hour," and meaning it. The masses believe that such detachment is cold, even inhuman. They are wrong. The detached man is not less human, he is more human, for he acts from choice rather than compulsion. His life is not a series of reflexes, but a series of deliberate steps toward a chosen destination. Consider the master chess player. He does not move the instant his opponent touches a piece. He studies the board, not the opponent's expression. He asks, "What is the truth of the position? What will this move cost me? What will it gain me?" Only when the move aligns with his long-term plan does he touch a piece. The crowd may call him slow, but he calls himself in control. You must play the game of time in the same way. You must see each invitation to react as a move on the board. Before you answer an email, agree to a meeting, or engage in a conversation, you must ask, does this advance my strategy? Is this the best use of this hour? Will this yield a return that justifies the time spent? If the answer is no, you decline, and you decline without apology. This is where discipline and detachment meet. Discipline keeps you on the path. Detachment prevents you from being pulled off it. Without discipline, you drift. Without detachment, you are dragged. With both, you move as the 1% move steadily, directly, without being turned aside by the noise of the day. And yet, detachment alone is not enough. You must also cultivate mental discipline, for the thief of time is not only outside you, but inside you. Procrastination is the internal pickpocket. Distraction is the internal swindler. These thieves work not by force but by persuasion, convincing you that there is no harm in a few moments stolen here and there. But moments add to minutes, minutes to hours, and hours to years, and before you know it, the treasure is gone. The mind without discipline will wander into whatever pleases it in the moment. The mind with discipline will return again and again to what it has chosen, no matter how many temptations present themselves. Discipline is the shepherd that keeps your attention in the pasture, where it can be nourished and multiplied. This is why the masters of time keep deliberate practices for training the mind. They set specific hours for their most important work and treat those hours as sacred. They refuse to keep their devices within reach during deep work. They train themselves to notice the moment their attention drifts and to bring it back without delay. They measure their day not by how busy they felt, but by how much real progress was made toward their definite purpose. The undisciplined measure time by activity. The disciplined measure it by results. The undisciplined are proud of how much they did. The disciplined are proud of how much they advanced. And here lies the great paradox. When you master emotional detachment and mental discipline, you discover that you have more time than you thought. It was there all along, but it was buried under the debris of unchosen commitments, unnecessary reactions, and uncontrolled thoughts. Clear away this debris, and you will find hours you thought were lost. Guard these hours with your life, for in them lies the wealth the 1% use to build empires, shape industries, and command destinies. Mental neutrality is the discipline of receiving life without distortion. It is the ability to stand in the center of chaos, to watch opportunities and threats alike parade before you, and yet not be swept away by the first surge of emotion. It is the refusal to label something as victory or defeat until the full truth has revealed itself. The untrained mind lives at the mercy of its first impressions. It sees an opportunity and calls it good, rushing to embrace it before it has been weighed. It sees a challenge and calls it bad, recoiling in fear before it has been understood. In both cases, it reacts, and in reacting, it spends time it does not yet know is worth spending. The neutral mind does not rush to action. It rushes to clarity. It says, "Let me see this clearly before I move." It asks, "What is the fact beneath the feeling? What is the truth beneath the appearance?" And it does not act until the answers are plain. This law is not an excuse for delay. It is a safeguard against waste. For the greatest waste of time is not in doing nothing, but in doing the wrong thing at the wrong moment. The neutral mind spares you from this waste by ensuring that your actions are always chosen, never forced. Consider the seasoned investor who hears of a sudden drop in the market. The crowd panics, selling at a loss. He does not. He studies the cause. He considers the fundamentals. He weighs the long-term trend against the short-term shock. Only when he has gathered sufficient fact does he act, and when he does, his action is decisive, unhurried, and profitable. This same principle governs the master of time. When a request, a crisis, or an opportunity arises, he does not leap without looking. He does not allow urgency to disguise itself as importance. He knows that some matters resolve themselves without his involvement, and that others become clearer with a moment's pause. This is why the law of mental neutrality is inseparable from emotional detachment. To see clearly, you must first free yourself from the pull of your own emotions. If you are hungry for praise, you will call any flattering offer important. If you are afraid of disapproval, you will call any conflict dangerous. Neutrality strips away these distortions, allowing you to see each matter for what it truly is, no more, no less. And here is the hidden gift of neutrality. It multiplies your influence. In any group, the one who is calm and impartial becomes the center of gravity. Others are drawn to his stability, trust his judgment, and follow his lead. His words carry more weight because they are spoken without frenzy. His decisions stand longer because they are made without haste. To cultivate mental neutrality, train yourself to insert distance between stimulus and decision. When a matter arises, ask, "What are the facts?" Not opinions, not guesses, but verifiable truths. What is the real cost in time if I engage? Not the imagined cost, but the measurable one. Does this align with my definite purpose? Not with my pride, my convenience, or my fear, but with my aim. By forcing every matter through this filter, you slow the theft of your time by false urgencies. You move from being a pawn of circumstance to the player who chooses each move with deliberate power. And once you have chosen, you move, for neutrality is not passivity. It is preparation. It is the archer drawing the bow to full tension before release. When the arrow flies, it does so with precision, and it does not miss its mark. Calmness is not the absence of motion. It is the mastery of it. It is not the lack of feeling. It is the rulership of feeling. The calm mind does not deny the storm. It stands unmoved within it, directing each action as though the wind and thunder were but whispers in the distance. Without calmness, every skill you possess is diminished. The best plan will be abandoned if panic seizes you. The sharpest intellect will be dulled if anger inflames you. The most disciplined schedule will be thrown aside if anxiety drives you to distraction. Calmness is the foundation on which every other form of mastery is built, for it is the state in which reason can speak clearly and purpose can be pursued without interference. The 1% are not calm because their lives are easy. They are calm because they have trained themselves to remain steady while life roars around them. They understand that in business, in war, in creation, the advantage always belongs to the one who can think while others are losing their heads. When a crisis strikes, the masses scatter, some in panic, some in despair, some in frantic activity that changes nothing. The calm man does not scatter. He assesses, he prioritizes. He acts with precision. His movements are measured, but his results are swift. And here is the paradox. Calmness accelerates progress. The frantic mind mistakes speed for productivity, but haste is often waste. The calm mind takes the shortest path to the goal because it does not veer into unnecessary detours. Like a river that flows steadily, it moves with constant power, carving through stone itself. Calmness is also a signal. It tells all who observe you that you are in control, not only of yourself, but of the situation. This is why leaders who maintain composure in difficulty attract followers naturally. Men and women crave stability, and they will lend their trust, their loyalty, and their time to the one who provides it. To cultivate calmness, you must first discipline your inner dialogue. For most men, the greatest disturbance comes not from the outer world, but from the noise within their own minds. Worries rehearsed over and over, arguments replayed endlessly, future disasters imagined in vivid detail. All of this drains focus and weakens action. The master of calmness directs his inner speech with the same care as his outer speech. He does not allow his mind to speak to him as an enemy would. He reminds himself in the midst of tension, I have time to decide. I have the ability to think clearly. I will not give away this hour to fear. Second, you must guard your environment. Calmness is easier to hold in a room designed for it. The masters of time design their workspaces to reduce noise, remove clutter, and limit unnecessary interruptions. They treat their focus as a sacred fire, protecting it from every draft that would snuff it out. Third, you must practice stillness under pressure. This is not done in the absence of challenge, but in the midst of it. When urgency calls, you do not rush headlong, you breathe, you center your thoughts. You remind yourself that speed without clarity is sabotage. You move only when the path is visible, and when it is, you move without hesitation. And lastly, you must learn to recover quickly. Calmness is not the avoidance of all disturbance. It is the swift return to balance after disturbance occurs. The 1% are not immune to frustration or surprise. They simply refuse to remain in those states. They return to clarity faster than others, and in doing so, they waste less time on the useless work of emotional recovery. Calmness, then, is a double-edged advantage. It protects you from wasting hours in reaction, and it wins you the confidence of those whose cooperation can save you years. It is not a luxury. It is an essential tool of wealth, influence, and mastery. Thought first is the discipline of commanding the mind before commanding the hands. It is the refusal to spend even a minute in action until the blueprint is clear, the target defined, and the consequences weighed. It is the deliberate act of placing the mind ahead of the body, strategy ahead of movement, vision ahead of execution. The average man begins with movement and calls it progress. He starts his day in a rush of activity, answering messages, agreeing to meetings, taking on tasks, all before asking himself a single question, is this the best use of my time? And because he does not ask, he cannot answer, and because he cannot answer, he spends the day reacting rather than creating. The 1% live differently. Before the first step, they decide the direction. Before the first word, they decide the meaning. Before the first strike, they decide the aim. They do not allow the momentum of the moment to dictate the course of the day. Why is thought first so powerful? Because every action has a cost, and time is the currency. To act without thought is to spend blindly, trusting that your hours will buy you something of value. But hours spent cannot be refunded. Once gone, they are gone forever. Thought first ensures that every hour is an investment, not a gamble. Consider the builder. He does not begin laying bricks at random, hoping they will form a house. He begins with a plan, drawn to scale, tested for strength, and approved for function. Only then does he pick up his tools. The plan may take days to prepare, but it saves months in construction and prevents years of regret. In the realm of time mastery, your plan is the mental picture of your outcome, the sequence of steps required to reach it, and the clear decision on whether it is worth your hour. The law is simple. 1 minute of clear thought before action can save 10 minutes of correction after action. The masters of time push this further. 1 hour of clear thought before action can save a year of wasted work. Thought first also shields you from the seduction of busyness. Many pride themselves on how much they do, as if hours filled with motion were proof of accomplishment. But the man who thinks first may work fewer hours yet accomplish more, for he places each act exactly where it will have the greatest effect. In applying thought first, there are three critical questions to ask before committing to any task. What result do I want from this? Without a clear result, you are merely filling time. Is this the highest priority for this hour? If not, postpone it or delegate it. Is there a more direct path to the same result? Often the shortest route is found only by pausing to look for it. Once these questions are answered, action must follow without delay. For thought first is not thought only. Thinking without acting is as wasteful as acting without thinking. The masters of time know the exact moment to stop thinking and start moving, and when they move, they do so with conviction, for the decision has already been made in the mind. This principle is also the foundation of decisive leadership. A leader who acts without thinking is reckless. A leader who thinks without acting is paralyzed. The leader who thinks first and acts next commands both respect and results. And here lies another advantage. When your decisions are the product of thought first, they are easier to defend and harder to shake. You will not be swayed by every objection or doubt, for you have already considered them before moving. Your course is set not by impulse but by reason, and reason is a stronger anchor than feeling. Thought first is not a slow process once mastered. In time, it becomes a reflex, the mind instantly framing the goal, weighing the cost, and choosing the path before the hands have even moved. The 1% live in this state so consistently that to act without thinking feels to them as unnatural as breathing without air. Autosuggestion is the deliberate, repeated planting of chosen thoughts into the fertile soil of your subconscious until they take root and bear fruit in action. It is the constant whisper to yourself of who you are, what you will do, and how you will live until that whisper becomes the natural voice of your mind. The untrained man leaves his mind open to whatever seed the world chooses to throw into it. News, gossip, fear, complaint, these are scattered into his thoughts every day, and because he does not guard the gate, they grow unchecked. In time, he becomes the product of what others have suggested to him, rather than the master of his own direction. The 1% guard this gate with vigilance. They do not allow the day to begin without giving their subconscious its orders. They do not allow the day to end without reviewing whether those orders were carried out. This is not fantasy, it is engineering. If your mind is the factory, autosuggestion is the blueprint you hand to the foreman at the start of the shift. Without it, the workers, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, will produce whatever comes to mind. With it, they will produce exactly what you have instructed. The most effective autosuggestions are specific, commanding, and emotionally charged. They are not vague hopes, but definite statements of intent. They are spoken as if the desired state already exists, for the subconscious accepts repetition as reality. For mastery over time, your autosuggestions might be, I am the master of my hours. They serve my purpose alone. I decide what enters my day and what is refused. My thoughts are disciplined, my actions deliberate, my results inevitable. No urgency controls me. I choose my pace and I choose my aim. Repeated each morning, these statements train your mind to filter every decision through the lens of your definite purpose. Repeated each night, they reinforce your identity as a master of time, not a servant to it. And when this belief is solid, action becomes effortless. You no longer have to force yourself to decline wasteful invitations. Your identity declines them for you. You no longer struggle to maintain focus. Your self-image demands it. This is why autosuggestion is the hidden engine of all other disciplines. Discipline without identity is brittle, it cracks under strain. Identity forged by autosuggestion is unbreakable. You no longer try to be disciplined, you simply act as you have told yourself you are. The masters of time understand that every day without deliberate suggestion is a day in which the mind reverts to the default programming of the masses. They never allow such a lapse. Their thoughts are chosen with the same precision as their investments, for they know that the returns are infinite. From autosuggestion we move, naturally and without break, into personal initiative, for it is the hand that takes the blueprint from the mind and builds it into the world. Personal initiative is the refusal to wait for permission to act. It is the instinct to move first, to create conditions rather than to wait for them. It is the force that compresses decades of progress into years. For the man who takes initiative lives more life in the same span of time. In the matter of time mastery, personal initiative is the bridge between decision and execution. The average man decides and waits. The master decides and begins. He knows that a plan held too long in the mind begins to decay. He acts while the decision is still warm, while the energy of choice is fresh. Initiative does not mean recklessness. It means the courage to take the first step toward a clear aim, even before every detail is perfect. It means trusting that movement will reveal what standing still never can. It means understanding that the momentum of action generates clarity, opportunities, and allies that would not exist without that first move. The 1% practice initiative as a daily habit. They do not wait for instructions from above. They invent their own tasks aligned with their purpose. They do not wait for ideal conditions. They improve conditions by beginning. They do not fear making mistakes. They fear losing time. When personal initiative is combined with emotional detachment, mental discipline, and a definite purpose, the effect is exponential. You no longer waste hours in hesitation, in doubt, in waiting for someone else's signal. You act, and the world adjusts to your movement. This is the point at which the mastery of time becomes the mastery of destiny. For time is the raw material from which all achievement is formed. He who controls it controls the rate of his progress, the scope of his influence, the height of his reach. And so we arrive at the conclusion of this philosophy, not as an end, but as a command. You are the master of your hours. No man, no circumstance, no emotion may claim them without your consent. Guard them as you would guard your life, for they are your life counted not in years, but in moments spent in pursuit of your definite purpose. Decide with thought, act with discipline, stand with calmness, choose with detachment, reinforce with auto-suggestion, move with initiative. Do this and you will not merely manage time, you will command it, and through it, you will command the future.